Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the question, should Halo Infinite be cancelled on Xbox One? So I know this is going to be a controversial topic. I know I'm going to have a lot of people on both sides arguing about this, but by and large, people are now questioning whether Halo Infinite should be cancelled on Xbox One. So Halo Infinite, when it releases, we got a new updated release date. It's going to be releasing fall of this year. Now we don't know what month, we don't know what day, we don't know anything like that. We just know it's going to be later this year. So okay, they still got probably another 7-8 months to go at least before the game will be coming out. And it's going to release on Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, and PC. So that's 6 platforms, and they all feature some sort of variance within their hardware. I mean, even going between the Xbox One and the Xbox One S, there is still slight differences in hardware. And so the game has to be polished on all 6 platforms. And that's going to be a pretty crazy task, which is why the game has been delayed a year. So it was supposed to release in time for the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. It was supposed to be a day 1 launch game, but instead it got delayed. So we did not get it when it released with the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, and now it's going to be releasing a year later. Now, clear back in July when we first got our glimpse of Halo Infinite, of like gameplay of it and stuff, of course the internet memed it to death. You know, that's where we got the meme of Craig the Brute. But a lot of people are really crapping over the graphics of it, saying that it looks like an Xbox 360 game, and saying that if the game is looking like it is, if it's an Xbox Series X game, then the Xbox Series X might not be as powerful as Microsoft said it was. But by and large, there was a lot of outrage over the look of Halo Infinite, and that was a large contributing factor to the fact that Halo Infinite got delayed a year. Was they said they delayed it a year so they can polish the game and get it running properly on the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, because we also heard that when the game was supposed to release with the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, it would not have a full enhancement patch. It would not fully take advantage of the ray tracing cores that we have inside these new systems, and it wouldn't really fully take advantage of these new systems. That would be happening in an update sometime, months later. So instead they delayed it a year, so now when it does release, it'll be fully polished and up to the standard of the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. But recently we've had huge controversies within the gaming community regarding Cyberpunk, and Cyberpunk on last gen. So Cyberpunk on the base Xbox One and the base PlayStation 4. Now that has caused some lawsuits. So many gamers have actually refunded their games because of that. And it actually made Microsoft and Sony put warnings on those versions of the game, warning gamers away from purchasing them because of how poorly they perform on those old systems. And the question has been asked quite a lot regarding Cyberpunk, whether or not they should have just not released it for those systems, that since it's such a poor performing game, is it really even worth it to release on the base Xbox One and PlayStation 4? Some people say, hey, this is such a terrible product, and they're constantly misleading gamers about this, that they should not have released it at all. Other people are saying that they should have delayed the game more times in order to get the game up to a decent standard on those systems. But the thing is, regarding Cyberpunk, is the game actually runs pretty decently well on the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, and of course on PC, and also on Stadia. But the real kicker is that Cyberpunk is not actually an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 game. It is an Xbox One game that is just updated a little bit. You're playing Cyberpunk through backwards compatibility on your Series X. There is no Series X version of the game. They are still working on a patch, an update, an enhancement for the game that will be releasing sometime soon. And so if we go back to relating to this, the Halo, this is pretty much the same situation. If Halo Infinite would have released with the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, we potentially could have met the same scenario that Cyberpunk did, where the game runs decently well on these new systems, even though it's not specifically made for them, even though it hasn't received a full enhancement version of it. But then if we look at the base Xbox One, maybe that version might not have ran so well. Now this is all kind of speculation. Of course the game didn't come out, so we don't know what the game looks like on base Xbox One. But this has caused a lot of controversy, as I've said. People are wondering, hey, Halo Infinite should be canceled on Xbox One because of what we've seen with Cyberpunk. Because Cyberpunk is so terrible on the base Xbox One, is it even really worth selling? But then other people in the community have come out and said, no, Halo Infinite will not be like Cyberpunk on the Xbox One. Halo Infinite should still be released on the Xbox One, and that's because 343 has been working on Halo Infinite specifically for the Xbox One for years now. They've had Xbox hardware development kits for years now. They know exactly what they're doing with this hardware, and they know all the little tricks with this hardware to squeeze every last bit out of it, but some still wonder, is that going to be enough? Is it even worth it to ship Halo Infinite and advertise it as a next-gen game if, say, on the base Xbox One, if the game runs at 720p, has plenty of frame rate drops from 60 FPS, it doesn't hold a lock 60 frames per second, textures are muddy, lighting is bad? Is that really the experience that you want to give to gamers to show off your new game that you've been working on for 6 years now? And now people are saying that the base Xbox One is going to hold back Halo Infinite, that Halo Infinite is not going to reach its true potential because of the Xbox One. And we all know that, of course, we know this can be true, that games can't fully take advantage of the power of the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X if they are still having to be designed for the Xbox One. They fundamentally have a lot different architectures, they have less RAM, they have a hard drive instead of an SSD, they don't have any ray tracing cores, and the CPU is much slower. Even though it has the same 8 cores, its clock speeds are lower, plus it's a worse architecture. So inevitably there will be experiences and games on the Xbox Series X that will not be able to run on the Xbox One. I mean, for an example, think about Call of Duty Warzone. Think about Warzone trying to be played on the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 only had 512 megabytes of RAM. You compare that to, say, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Those both have 8 gigabytes of RAM. So they have 16 times more RAM than the Xbox 360. So you think about them trying to get Warzone to work on the Xbox 360. Of course, they'd have to dial back the resolution down to probably like 480p. There'd be so much pop-in, like it's basically unplayable. You would not be able to get an experience like Warzone on the Xbox 360. Now think about that, some true next-gen experience, true next-gen game that won't be able to run on the Xbox One because it's going to have to take advantage of the full power of these new systems. That's kind of the argument that people are trying to make. They say that there will be experiences that they could have in Halo Infinite that they're not going to be able to have because of the base Xbox One. And other people in the community have pointed out that, hey, this might not actually be true because the game has been developed for the Xbox One. The game is not an Xbox Series X game. It is going to be enhanced for those systems, but is not a true Xbox Series X game. It is not built specifically for this system. We're probably not going to see a Halo game built specifically for the Xbox Series X for, I would say, probably 4 or 5 years at least, until we finally get an Xbox Series X exclusive game that can focus on the Series X and Series S before games truly start taking advantage of the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. No matter what, Halo Infinite will be an Xbox One game. Its core engine, its architecture, everything about the game was designed for the Xbox One, Xbox One S, and Xbox One X. When they started development on this game like 6 years ago, the Xbox One X wasn't even out. They were designing this for the base Xbox One. And then as time progressed, of course we got the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X, and then it was only about, maybe 18 months ago or so, before developers finally started getting development kits for the Xbox Series X. So no matter what, at the end of the day, the game will not be a true Xbox Series X game. Now that's fine, but here on this other side of the fence, people are saying, okay, that's fine, but what about the fact that Halo Infinite is supposed to be a 10-year game? This game is supposed to last 10 years through updates, through extra content, through all kinds of stuff. And I don't quite believe them when they say that Halo Infinite is going to last 10 years, because you think about that, like what, this game is supposed to last until 2031? What? 10 years? Like, okay, you think about 10 years ago. Think about 10 years ago. We had what? That was 2011. We had what? We had Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. We had Modern Warfare 3. Can you imagine playing Modern Warfare 3 and Combat Evolved Anniversary for the last 10 years that you haven't played any other games, you've only played those games? Sure, they can continue to add content and whatnot, but at what point do you just cut it off and go, okay, well, there has to be a new game here? I think maybe 4 or 5 years is that cutoff point. I mean, Halo Master Chief Collection has actually lasted us a good while at this point. I mean, Master Chief Collection came out in 2014, so that was 7 years ago, and it's still going strong. But still, I mean, I've come back and I've played Master Chief Collection quite a bit. I'm still playing it currently, and it's a great game. But at some point, they have to stop supporting it. They have to stop putting out new content for it, and they have to focus on a new experience. Now, I don't think Halo Infinite, like I said, I don't think it's going to be a 10-year game. I hope that it might be a 5 or 4 year game and that way at that point they can release a new Halo game specifically for these new consoles and for, of course, next generation PC hardware. The whole question about should Halo Infinite be canceled on Xbox One is a tricky one because there's still so many gamers that are playing on Xbox One. I mean, they said there's only about 5% of gamers that have actually upgraded to these new systems. And I mean, when you think about it, at the end of the day, they make these games to make money. That's the whole purpose of this. So if you're alienating 95% of your player base by only releasing it on the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, you're going to lose out on so many sales and so much money by that. Sure, you're going to have plenty of customers that are going to upgrade specifically for this game because if it's exclusive, they're going to want to play that game. I mean, I think back to, say, for me, for an example, would be Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3 was supposed to be a next-gen exclusive game. It was supposed to only release for the Xbox One, PS4, and for PC. So I bought an Xbox One for that game. I was like, oh man, I can't play this game on my 360? Okay, well, I'll buy a next-gen console. So you will have people who will upgrade specifically for a game, but it's typically not enough to make that distinction to make it exclusive to that platform. Plus, we also have the other issue of that if it is exclusive to Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, we also have these supply issues where you can't even go out to stores and buy Xbox Series X's and Xbox Series S's right now. They're all out of stock. So until they even get that sorted out, even if you wanted to play this game on the new systems, you can't even buy them right now. But 343 has said that this final year of development, this year that they've delayed it, is exactly so they can polish the game, so they can get it polished on all platforms. I'm sure 343 has definitely seen all of the outrage that has happened because of Cyberpunk, and they're going to try and avoid that as much as possible. They're going to try and do everything in their power to get the Xbox One version of Halo Infinite to be the best version that it can. Hopefully they're also transparent with the community about it. And I mean, Cyberpunk could have done this as well. The developers could have said, hey, we know this game is not quite up to the standard that we want it to be on the base Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but we're still going to allow you to play it on there. Just know you're not getting the best version possible. Here is what the game will look like on these systems. If you want to play the game at its best version, we recommend you buy an Xbox Series X, a PC, or a PlayStation 5 to play the game. So long as the developers are transparent about it, about what you're getting on that platform, I think you could avoid this whole controversy that happened with Cyberpunk. But pretty much what we should expect from Halo Infinite on Xbox One is that we should, of course, expect a lower resolution. I wouldn't even expect 1080p on it. On the base Xbox One, I would expect probably a dynamic 1080p, probably hitting about 900p at all times. Lighting, of course, is going to be worse. Texture quality is going to be worse. Probably anti-aliasing is going to be worse. Texture filtering is going to be worse. Ambient occlusion is going to be worse. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be worse on the Xbox One. But so long as the game at least runs at a stable frame rate, say a locked 60, I think the game will actually perform very well. And like I said, I think that they need to be transparent about what gamers are getting on the base Xbox One. You're not getting this true next-gen experience on that system. For that, they're going to need an Xbox One X or an Xbox Series X for that. Now, 343 has also posted a number of blog posts about the updates for Halo Infinite and how development is going. They shared this screenshot of it, of Halo Infinite, of kind of work in progress. And I have to say that I'm actually pretty impressed. The game actually looks a whole lot better than that gameplay we saw back in July. Now, if this is how Halo Infinite actually will look on the Xbox Series X, I will be pleasantly surprised and I will be happy about that. I mean, at the end of the day, as a gamer who spent $500 on this console, I want to really be able to see what this console can do. And so far, I haven't been exactly wowed with many games and their implementation of Xbox Series X versions of games. Now, that's honestly because these games were made for the Xbox One and they're just enhanced in a small way for this new system. But I really want to see what 343 can do with this extra year to really get the most out of the Series X with ray tracing, as well as 4K resolution. Plus, as we've seen with Halo Master Chief Collection, that game got an update for Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X, where you can run that game at 120 frames per second. Now that is incredible, and I would love to be able to see that. I'm pretty sure 343 has said that Halo Infinite multiplayer will run at 120 frames per second. Now, that's also a kind of a question people are wondering is wait, how is it going to run at 120 FPS on base Xbox One? You'd have to turn the resolution way down. As far as I'm aware, the HDMI on the Xbox One does not support 120 frames per second. Plus, the CPU probably would not be able to hit it as well. So it kind of makes me wonder, oh wait, how are they going to have 120 FPS on Xbox One? Are they going to have Xbox One as a separate player pool or something? I don't know. That's going to be a question that 343 is going to have to answer for us, but that's pretty much it, guys. What do you guys think? Should Halo Infinite be canceled on Xbox One? I don't think so. I think it should still release for Xbox One. I think millions of gamers should be able to enjoy Halo Infinite and be able to play it, but I think that they need to understand that there is a better version out there. That if you really want to play the game at better quality, have it be smoother, have a better overall experience, you need to play it on better hardware, whether that be an Xbox One X, an Xbox Series S, or an Xbox Series X, or even PC. You need to play it on different hardware in order to get the best experience. Now, as long as they can be transparent about that, I think we're golden. But I don't believe this whole 10-year thing. I think it needs to last maybe 5 years. Then they need to have a true next-gen exclusive Halo experience. But that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this in the comments down below. That was kind of all over the place, but I hope you guys got the point. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, give me a thumbs up. And also let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.